Today, restaurants in New York City continue to suffer through lockdown rules imposed by the governor's office. The $25 billion industry continues to plead with the city leaders for a return to normalcy. Popular Italian eatery Il Bacco Restaurant in Queens is one of the leading establishments pursuing a legal action against the city's orders. Tina, general manager at Il Bacco, shares her experience.
I'm 29 years old. I've been working here since I'm 15. This restaurant started in 1991 by my father. He's an immigrant from Calabria, Italy. He came here when he was 13 years old. When he came here, he was, working, trying to figure himself out. And he went back to Italy for a vacation and he fell upon this place called Firenze. And it was like a gelato store. So when he came back to America, he said, I want to open up this gelato store in Manhattan. So he opened it up on 82nd and 1st. Then, very quickly after he opened, the winter came. So nobody wants gelato in the winter time. He said, what am I supposed to do? Let me turn this gelato store into a restaurant. And that's how it became Firenze, his first restaurant. A couple of years went by, realized that this was how he felt he knew how to make money and how to make a good living for himself and his soon-to-be family. I was just born. He then created Il Bacco. Il Bacco means the god of wine. This coming June will be 29 years that Il Bacco is open.
Outside of Queens County, less than a mile away from Il Bacco, indoor dining is completely open. The inconsistent enforcement of these rules set by the city remains an ongoing issue.
I understand there's people that got sick. I understand New York City is a very congested area. I understand all those parts. But at this point, you take Il Bacco and we're located 500 feet from the Nassau County border. It's very frustrating that you see people flocking from New York City to Long Island every day. They're just leaving. These people on the Upper East Side that they have their Hamptons homes and their Long Island homes, they're leaving the city and they're staying in the Hamptons and Long Island. So right now, if anything's congested, it is out there, not New York City. They continuously are pinning it on us, on New Yorkers. But the truth of the matter is what happens inside a restaurant should have no bearing on what's happening outside in the world. You take a restaurant, if you make it 25%, it's each restaurant for themselves. As long as these restaurants are conducting themselves safely, professionally, properly, with all the rules and regulations, for me, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to conduct our livings and our livelihoods, especially at this point. I understand in the beginning there was a lot of unknown territory, but at this point, we're much more educated in what's happening, that there's no need for it anymore.
Tina and her father are also leading a class action lawsuit against Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, and the Attorney General's office over New York City's indoor dining ban.
The lawsuit that we had filed started because once June came around, which we all kind of suspected, once the weather got warmer, things were going to get a little bit better. That's what they had said from the beginning of the year. Oh, in the warm weather, it's going to go away. It never happened. They started off with phases, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Those phases never existed for New York City. They existed for upstate, Westchester County, Suffolk County, Nassau County, but never for the 5 boroughs. So while the rest of the state was following through with their phases, we were not. So they would go into phase 1, ours would get delayed. They would go into phase 2, we didn't even enter phase 1. Right after we had filed the suit, 8 days later, Cuomo announced that he was going to open us up at 25% capacity. And then he said that he was going, but even then, that was September 8th when he came out saying that he was going to open us up. He didn't actually open us up until September 30th. So we still had to wait a whole nother 3 weeks. Then we were told from the lawsuit, okay, November 1st, we're going to touch base again and see if we can bump you guys to 50%. And then at that point, it was then it was the election. And then, if you recall the 3 weeks around the election, the virus didn't exist. And then the virus came back. And then it was all these things. So now it's people have the flu and, then they're sick again. Now it's wintertime, so one thing led to the other. But like I had said before, these lawsuits, every time something changes with state regulations, the lawsuits need to be mended. So when we initially filed the lawsuit to open up indoor dining, which was, we were aiming for the same percentage as everywhere else. So we wanted 50%. He gave us 25. So then you have to go and mend the lawsuit to fight for 50. It's just like an ongoing thing. So it's kind of very interesting that I think they clearly know how to manipulate the system, so you kind of get nowhere.
Tina's legal battle against lockdowns isn't limited to her own self-interest. She also worries for the overall well-being of her employees and friends who have no choice but to accept the continued normalization of a shuttered society.
For me personally, my restaurant I take pride in the fact that let's say I have 60 employees here. As an owner and the manager, I take pride in the fact that I give 60 people their jobs to have a living. The mayor has come out and said numerous times that, he has said numerous times that, eating out is for the middle class or the middle to upper class. I think that's horrible because the employees in a restaurant are not the middle to upper class most of the time. They're typically a little bit on the lower scale, and they need this, and this is how they work, and they come to this country, and this is their go-to job, their go-to, professions. And to say something like that, and it not only affects the people inside of the restaurant, but it affects the people who, number one, come out to eat because maybe you had a stressful week of work and you just need to let loose and go out for a drink and you don't feel like cooking. But how many different types of vendors we have, and it affects their businesses too. It's such a naive, horrible, arrogant, ignorant thing to say that he has said that. And yeah, for me, my employees are everything. I put them above myself all the time. As the owner in a situation like this, you're the one that's going to say, I'm going to take a pay cut before they do. I'm going to cut myself back as an owner just so they can get paid,
Tina and her family are committed to reopening New York City and saving what remains of America's biggest and most iconic economy. They hope to restore Il Bacco's freedom to feed and entertain willing patrons.
This is everything to us. This is, something that, like I said before, my father, came from this country at 13 years old with nothing. He's really that story of like, I came here with $7 in my pocket and he made this. And for someone like my father, for this to be stripped from him just because somebody says so, that you can't conduct your business when not everybody agrees with that, it's a lot. It's been very stressful. My family's definitely not how they normally are with everything that has been going on. It's, let's say we were to lose this, it's like losing a piece of us. This is my home. We all call this our home.